My sister inherited a multi-million-dollar estate, and I got an old junkyard. It's just trash anyway, they laughed. But when that junkyard made me a fortune, they were stunned. Spoiler, $800 million. My name's Rachel, and if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you I was the unluckiest woman in the world, the kind of woman life keeps kicking just for fun. But looking back, I realize now I wasn't unlucky at all. I was just playing the long game without knowing it. For most of my life, I was treated like an afterthought. My father, Richard Holloway, was a self-made businessman, the type who thought success was genetic. And according to him, I was born defective. "You've got no vision, Rachel," he'd say, shaking his head. "You think small. That's why you'll never be great." I heard some version of that my whole life. Whenever I tried to impress him, he'd cut me down before I even had a chance to stand. Meanwhile, my older sister, Lisa, could do no wrong. She got straight A's. Dad framed her report cards. I got a decent job. He barely looked up from his newspaper. So when he died, I wasn't expecting much. I'd made peace with being the disappointment. But what I didn't expect was how far he'd go to make sure I knew my place, even from the grave. At the will reading, Lisa sat beside me, her designer purse perched on her lap like a trophy. The lawyer listed everything Dad had left her, the estate, the investments, the summer house in Napa, millions of dollars in assets. Then he turned to me. "And Rachel Holloway," he said, clearing his throat, "your father has left you the Holloway salvage yard." "A junkyard." Lisa let out a laugh so loud it echoed through the room. "Oh my God," she snorted, barely containing herself. "That's perfect. Rachel, queen of the trash heap." Even the lawyer smirked. I should have been humiliated, furious. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the paperwork. Because what they didn't know, what I didn't even know yet, was that this so-called pile of trash was about to make me richer than all of them combined. I drove out to the junkyard that same afternoon. Not because I was excited, I just wanted to see exactly how badly I'd been screwed over. The place was exactly how I remembered it from childhood. Rusted-out cars stacked like a metal graveyard, old appliances tossed into random heaps, a crumbling office shack with a busted sign that still read Holloway Salvage, as if it were something worth being proud of. A junkyard. That was my father's final message to me. A giant middle finger from beyond the grave. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Growing up, I knew Lisa was the favorite, but I kept hoping, just maybe, I'd earn a little respect, a nod of approval, something. But no, Dad never wasted his time on lost causes. I could still hear his voice from when I was 17, standing in his study, palms sweaty, as I told him I wanted to start my own business. He had leaned back in his leather chair, giving me that half-amused, half-pitying look. "Rachel, you can barely pass math class. You don't have the mind for money." "I do," I'd insisted. "I just need—" "What, a handout?" he scoffed. "You think I built this empire by begging for favors?" "No, Rachel. Some people are meant to lead. Others are meant to work for them." And that was the end of the conversation. Lisa, meanwhile, never had to ask for anything. She got a brand new BMW at 18. Fully paid tuition to an Ivy League school. A $200,000 wedding. Because in my father's words, a Holloway doesn't settle for less. And now she had everything. And I had this. I kicked an old hubcap, sending it skidding across the dirt. "Unbelievable," I muttered. A car door creaked open behind me. "Didn't expect to see a Holloway around here," a rough voice called out. I turned to see Rick, the old junkyard manager, stepping out of a trailer. The guy had been running this place since I was a kid, grizzled, permanently covered in grease, always carrying the smell of cigarette smoke and motor oil. "Yeah, well," I exhaled sharply. "Apparently I own this dump now." Rick let out a barking laugh. "Well, I'll be damned. Guess that means you're my new boss." That hit weird. I had never been anyone's boss before. Honestly, I hadn't even planned on keeping this place. "Yeah," I said, "guess so." Rick studied me for a moment, then jerked his thumb toward the shack. "Come on. If you're stuck with this place, you might as well see what you've got." Inside the office, it smelled like dust, motor grease, and bad coffee. Stacks of old invoices and ledgers covered the desk. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Rick plopped down in the chair, grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the drawer, and took a swig. "So," he said, wiping his mouth, "you selling?" I hesitated. That had been the plan. Dump this place as fast as possible and get something out of it. But the way Lisa had laughed at me, she thought I was nothing. She thought I'd walk away with a couple grand and disappear, just like the pathetic failure Dad always painted me as. And for some reason, that pissed me off more than anything. "What's this place even worth?" I asked. Rick snorted. "In its current state, Not much. Maybe a couple $100,000 if you find the right buyer. He rubbed his jaw. But there's a lot of old stock back there. People throw away all kinds of valuable stuff without realizing it. I frowned. Like what? He shrugged. Electronics, car parts, scrap metal. Some guy last year found an old arcade machine buried under a pile of junk and sold it for $10,000. Another dude bought a busted vending machine off us, cracked it open, and found $2,000 in forgotten quarters. Huh. I leaned back considering. Selling outright was the easiest option. But something about Lisa waltzing off with millions while I walked away with chump change didn't sit right with me. For once in my life, I wanted to do something, not because it was easy, but because it would piss them all off. I think I'll stick around for a bit, I said. See what's actually here. Rick grinned. Now that's interesting. The next few days, I threw myself into the junkyard. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, just something, anything, that made this whole situation suck less. I spent hours digging through old toolboxes, busted appliances, and dusty crates. I found a rusted Rolex, probably fake, a stack of vintage Playboys from the 80s, an old typewriter that looked like it belonged in a museum. Nothing life-changing, just junk. And then, on day 5, I found it. I was in the back lot, rummaging through an old filing cabinet. Most of it was garbage, expired paperwork, useless receipts. But at the very bottom, something caught my eye. A small silver external hard drive. It looked ancient, early 2000s maybe, scuffed and covered in dust, but intact. Curious, I took it inside and plugged it into an old computer. At first, nothing happened, just a flickering cursor. Then a single folder popped up. BTC Wallet Backup. Bitcoin. My heart started hammering. I clicked it open. Inside was a text file labeled Wallet Key, a long string of letters and numbers, a private key. My fingers felt numb as I copied the key and pasted it into a blockchain explorer. The screen loaded. Then my breath caught. Balance 12,000 BTC. I blinked, stared, did the math in my head. 12,000 Bitcoin at today's market value. That was $800 million. I choked on my own breath, my pulse roaring in my ears. For a solid minute, I just sat there, staring at the number, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Lisa had inherited houses, investments, a yacht. I had inherited a junkyard. And that junkyard had just made me richer than all of them combined. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my brain stuck in a feedback loop. This can't be real. This has to be a mistake. No way this is real. 12,000 Bitcoin. $800 million. The number just sat there on the screen, taunting me. I checked the wallet balance again and again. It didn't change. It didn't disappear. It was real. The air in the tiny office suddenly felt too thin. I pushed back from the desk, my hands shaking as I rubbed my face. My heart was hammering like a drum solo, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. This wasn't just money. This was life-changing wealth. This was the kind of money that rewrote destinies, the kind that turned nobodies into legends. And I had found it buried under trash. I let out a wild, almost delirious laugh, smacking my hand on the desk. "You smug fool," I muttered, thinking of my father. "Even in death, you tried to humiliate me, and you still lost." I felt like screaming, like running outside and flipping off the sky. Instead, I clenched my fists and forced myself to breathe. Stay calm. Think. This was dangerous money, the kind of wealth that could get you killed if the wrong people knew about it. If I wasn't careful, I could end up as just another headline. Woman mysteriously disappears after claiming she found millions in Bitcoin. I needed a plan. First things first, Rick. He had seen me pull the hard drive out of that cabinet. He didn't know what it was, but I couldn't risk him getting curious. I shoved the drive into my pocket and stepped out of the office. Rick was outside, leaning against the hood of an old pickup, smoking a cigarette. He looked up as I approached. "Find anything interesting?" he asked, exhaling a cloud of smoke. I forced a shrug. "Just some old electronics. Gonna see if any of it still works." Rick grunted. "Good luck with that. Most of the tech around here has been dead for years." I nodded, keeping my face neutral. "Yeah, anyway, I think I'll be wrapping things up soon. Might sell this place after all." Rick gave me a sideways look. "Thought you wanted to see if there was money in this dump." I smirked. "Turns out there just might be." That night I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every possible scenario. I had to get the Bitcoin out of that wallet, but I also had to be smart. Moving that much crypto at once would send up 1,000 red flags. I needed a safe, legal way to cash out without drawing attention. By morning, I had a plan. I reached for my phone and dialed the one person I knew could help. "If it isn't the family disappointment," a familiar voice answered. "Max," I said. My old college roommate. the one person who had always believed in crypto, even when the rest of us laughed at him. He'd started mining Bitcoin back in 2012, and now he was one of those retired at 30 types who spent his days drinking expensive whiskey and flipping NFTs. Max, I said, keeping my voice steady, I need your help. There was a pause. You sound weird. What's up? I hesitated, then said the words that still felt unreal. I found an old Bitcoin wallet. Max snorted. What, with like $10 in it? I exhaled slowly. 12,000 BTC. Silence. Then, leave me alone. I'm serious. Another pause. Then, in a much more serious tone, Rachel, if you're screwing with me. I'm not. I heard the sharp intake of breath on the other end. Jesus Christ. Max went silent again, probably doing the same mental math I had. Where on earth did you find 12,000 Bitcoin? In a junkyard. A short, stunned laugh. Of course you did. Okay, listen to me. Do not touch that wallet until we have a plan. If you move that much BTC at once, every exchange and regulatory agency on the planet is going to be all over you. Yeah, I figured. First step, he said. You're going to send me the public key. Not the private key, just the public one. I need to verify this thing is legit and hasn't been compromised. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Got it. Max exhaled. Rachel, if this is real, you just became one of the richest women on the entire planet. I grinned. Not bad for the girl who got left the junkyard, huh? Lisa found out 2 days later. I was finalizing my plan with Max when my phone rang. Lisa. I almost let it go to voicemail, but then I remembered her smug little laugh at the will reading. I picked up. Rachel, she said, her voice sugary sweet. How's my favorite junkyard queen? I smirked. Oh, just rolling around in all my trash. She laughed. Listen, I was thinking I might have been a little harsh at the reading. I was just joking, right? I raised an eyebrow. Here we go. I've actually been looking at some investment opportunities, she continued. Maybe I could help you sell that junkyard for a good price. I do have experience in finance, after all. I grinned. Oh, that's sweet of you, Lisa, but actually I think I'll hold on to it. Silence. Really? Yeah. Turns out it's more valuable than I thought. A sharp inhale. Rachel, she said, suddenly serious, don't be stupid. That place is a dump. Just sell it and take what you can get. No, I said. I think I'll sit on it for a while. See what it's really worth. Her tone shifted from fake concern to cold irritation. Rachel, don't be ridiculous. I chuckled. Why do you care so much? You got everything you wanted, didn't you? She hesitated. I just don't want you embarrassing yourself. You're not exactly known for making smart financial choices. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. Well, Lisa, I said, let's just say I think my luck's finally turning around. She had no idea. Nobody did. But they were about to. The thing about sudden, ridiculous wealth is that it doesn't change who you are. It just reveals who everyone else really is. And my family? They showed their true colors real fast. The first move. Max and I spent the next week strategizing. Moving that much Bitcoin was like playing chess with snipers aimed at your head. One wrong move, and suddenly you've got government agencies, hackers, and God knows who else sniffing around your fortune. The plan was simple. Slow liquidation. Multiple wallets. Multiple exchanges. Everything under the radar. Step 1 was securing the wallet. We moved the Bitcoin to cold storage and split it across multiple new wallets for safety. Step 2 was setting up a trust, one that wouldn't link directly to me. Step 3 was cashing out carefully. I started small, a few $100,000 here, another couple $100,000 there, just enough to set things in motion. By the end of the first month, I had a fresh $10 million sitting in newly established offshore accounts. And not a single soul in my family knew a thing. Well, not yet. The family comes crawling. It didn't take long before Lisa caught wind that something was off. At first, she just called more often. Sweet little check-ins. Hey, Rachel, how's my favorite little sister? Little sister. As if she hadn't spent her entire life treating me like I was barely worth the dirt on her designer heels. But I played along, acted oblivious. Let her think I was still that pathetic, clueless loser she loved to kick down. Then one day she slipped. So, she said over the phone, her voice dripping with fake nonchalance. That junkyard of yours, it's not still for sale, is it? Bingo. I grinned. Oh, I don't know, Lisa. I'm actually starting to like the place. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Rachel, be serious. Oh, I am serious. I leaned back in my chair, spinning a solid gold coin between my fingers. In fact, I just put in some renovations. You wouldn't believe what people throw away these days. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a much colder voice, what's going on? I chuckled. Why, Lisa? Worried I actually figured out how to make something of myself. She scoffed. Oh, please, you couldn't run a lemonade stand without screwing it up. I smirked. Maybe, but you might want to rethink that, considering I just bought my third property this month. Dead silence. You're lying, I laughed. Am I? That was the moment she knew. Something was very, very wrong. The panic sets in. By the time I liquidated my first 50 million, things got hilarious. Lisa showed up at the junkyard in person, looking furious. She stepped out of her brand new Porsche, sunglasses perched on her head, her expression carefully composed, but I could see the cracks, the tension in her jaw, the way she clutched her designer purse like it was a lifeline. Rachel, she said smoothly, we need to talk. I leaned against the rusted hood of an old Chevy. Oh, about what? She crossed her arms. Cut it out. I grinned. Wow, that's quite a way to greet your favorite little sister. Her nostrils flared. You're broke. You're supposed to be broke. I raised an eyebrow. That's funny, because my bank account says otherwise. Lisa stared at me, eyes narrowing. Then slowly, her lips curled into a smirk. Ah, she said, tilting her head. So you did sell the junkyard. I knew you'd cave. I laughed. Lisa, do you really think some real estate deal made me this kind of money? Her smirk faltered. Then what did? I just smiled. Wouldn't you like to know? That's when the real fear kicked in. Lisa hated not being in control, and right now, she was spiraling. Rachel, she said, her voice sharper now, Dad left you garbage. If you have money, then... I shrugged. Guess I found treasure in the trash. She clenched her jaw. Whatever you're doing, you need to be careful. If this is illegal... I burst out laughing. Oh, now you're worried about my well-being. She exhaled sharply, then lowered her voice. Just tell me what's going on. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Then I grinned. Nah. Her face twisted in frustration. You're such a child, she snapped. Do you even know how to handle money? You'll burn through it in a year. You're still the same pathetic failure you've always been. I smiled wider. And yet, I'm the richest person in this family now. That shut her up. The final blow. By the end of the second month, word had spread. I started making moves. Big ones. I bought a penthouse in Manhattan, a private villa in Italy, a supercar collection that made headlines. Lisa lost it. The texts started flooding in. Lisa, Rachel, call me now. Mom, sweetheart, we need to talk. Your sister is very upset. Dad's old business partner. Heard you made some big investments, kid. Call me. And then the best one. Lisa. Rachel, I think we should work together. I have some investment ideas that could really help you. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my couch. This was it. The moment they realized I wasn't the disappointment. I wasn't the failure. I was the biggest success story this family had ever seen. And they couldn't stand it. They spent years treating me like nothing. Now they wanted a piece of my fortune. And I was about to show them exactly how it felt to be left with nothing. I sat in my penthouse, sipping a $22,000 glass of whiskey, watching the city lights shimmer below me. A year ago, my family laughed in my face. Today, they were begging. Lisa had called 6 times that morning. I ignored every single one. Mom had left a voicemail that started with, "Honey, we're family," and ended with, "After everything we did for you." Right, like treating me like garbage was some kind of favor. Even my father's old business associates had crawled out of the woodwork, suddenly eager to mentor me. It was hilarious. I swirled my drink, watching the amber liquid catch the light. They thought I was a joke. Now I was the punchline they'd never see coming. The final meeting. A week later, I agreed to one final family dinner. Not because I cared, because I wanted to watch them squirm. We met at a 5-star restaurant, the kind Lisa used to brag about dining in. Except this time, I was the one who booked the private room. I was the one paying the bill. And they all knew it. Mom, Lisa, and a few distant relatives were already seated when I walked in. Lisa's face was tight, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass. She had a new look now, desperation disguised as fake concern. "Rachel," she said, forcing a smile, "you look well." I smirked. I know. Mom gave me that old, sugary, sweet, manipulative voice. "Honey, it's been so long. We just want to talk." I leaned back in my chair. "Talk about what? How you all cut me out of Dad's will because you thought I was worthless?" Silence. Lisa cleared her throat. "Rachel, we didn't..." I held up a hand. "Spare me. We both know exactly what you thought. And honestly, I'm glad you did." Lisa stiffened. "Glad?" I grinned. "Yeah, because if Dad had handed me millions like he did you, I might have ended up just as entitled and useless." Lisa flushed deep red. Mom gasped. "Rachel, that's not fair." "Isn't it?" I leaned forward. "You called me a loser. You laughed at me, and now I'm richer than all of you combined. And I didn't have to bow down to anyone to get there." Lisa's hands curled into fists. "That money should have been mine," she hissed under her breath, forgetting for a moment to pretend. I laughed loudly. There it is. You don't care about me. You just can't stand that I won. Lisa shot up from her seat. You don't even know how to handle that kind of money. You're reckless, Rachel. You'll lose it all. And when you do, you'll come crawling back. I smirked. Guess we'll find out. Her nostrils flared. Mom reached for my hand. Sweetheart, please. You know we love you. I stared at her. You love money, I corrected. You loved me when I was broke and useful. Now I'm rich, and I don't need you. And that's what really pisses you off, isn't it? Mom's lips parted, but no words came out. I pushed back from the table, tossed my napkin onto my plate, and stood. This was fun, I said, throwing down a stack of $100 bills for the bill, just to watch Lisa's eye twitch. Then I turned to leave. Lisa's voice cut through the silence. You'll regret this. I stopped, turned, and met her gaze. No, I said, smirking, but you will. And then I walked out. This time nobody followed. Epilogue. So yeah, that's the story of how my family laughed at me, threw me away, and then watched me win harder than they ever thought possible. Lisa blew through Dad's millions in record time, made a few bad investments, got scammed by some exclusive hedge fund, had to sell her house just to stay afloat. Mom still tries to call, still leaves voicemails about how family sticks together. I never answer. Me, I wake up in a beachfront villa, drink stupidly expensive coffee, and live my best life. Moral of the story? Sometimes being underestimated is the best thing that can happen to you. And sometimes trash isn't trash at all. It's just treasure waiting for the right woman to find it.